The rain hammered against the glass of the boardroom windows, each drop like a drumbeat of doom. Ethan Cole said, "You're finished, Daniel." My chest tightened as I realized the trap was sprung. Daniel Hayes, once proud, now cornered, fought to breathe under the weight of betrayal. The contract before him was poisoned, crafted to strip him of everything he had built. He whispered, "You set me up." Ethan leaned back, his smile sharp as a blade, his eyes cold with victory. The other executives watched in silence, their loyalty bought. Daniel's career crumbled in that single moment, and the cruel laughter echoing inside him was the sound of a life destroyed. The storm outside matched the one raging in his heart. He thought, "This is not the end. This is the beginning of my revenge." Daniel staggered out of the boardroom, the storm's howl greeting him like a cruel friend. His reflection in the elevator doors mocked the man he had become. He whispered, "They think I'm finished." His chest heaved with rage as the city's neon glow flickered against his tired face. Every step into the night was a promise to himself. Ethan's smirk replayed in his mind, sharp as a wound that refused to heal. The rain drenched him, but he didn't care. The humiliation would not end him. It would shape him. Daniel clenched his fists, muttering, "This is not over. Not by a long shot." Inside a dim apartment, Daniel sat hunched at his desk, the city's lights bleeding through blinds like fractured memories. He stared at framed certificates now meaningless. His hands shook as he held a photo of him with Ethan, smiling in better days. He whispered, "You were supposed to be my ally." The photo cracked under his grip, glass splintering like trust. He set it down carefully, his eyes narrowing. The past was gone. The future would be written in vengeance. Daniel's phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was Lily Carter, his old friend, the only one who hadn't turned her back. She said, "Daniel, I heard what happened. Don't let him win." Daniel's voice was low. "He already did. But I'll make him pay." Lily's hesitation carried through the line, a mix of fear and loyalty. She said softly, "Just don't lose yourself." Daniel's eyes hardened as he whispered, "I've already lost everything. Now I have nothing to lose." The storm calmed by dawn, but Daniel's fury burned brighter than the sunrise. He stood on his balcony, rain-soaked streets below glittering like broken glass. He whispered, "Ethan Cole, you took everything from me." His grip tightened on the balcony rail. "Now, I'll take everything from you." The promise left his lips like fire carried on the wind. The city seemed to pulse with his determination, a battlefield waiting to be claimed. Daniel woke in the silence of his apartment, the dawn's pale light crawling across the floor like an unwelcome guest. His body ached, not from sleep but from the burden of humiliation that weighed on him like iron. He stared at the ceiling, remembering Ethan's words, the venom in them still fresh. He whispered, "He took my future." Daniel pushed himself out of bed and stood by the window, looking down at the streets below where people hurried to work, unaware of the war already brewing inside him. His phone buzzed again with unanswered calls from reporters hungry for scandal. He ignored them all, his mind consumed with the taste of betrayal. He thought of his parents' pride, his years of sacrifice, and how easily Ethan had stripped it away. His reflection in the glass showed not a broken man, but someone sharpening into something harder, darker. Daniel muttered, "He thinks he won, but this story is not finished. I'll make sure the final chapter is mine." Later that morning, Daniel walked into a small cafe tucked away on a quiet street. The aroma of roasted coffee beans filled the air, a stark contrast to the bitterness inside him. Lily Carter sat waiting, concern etched across her face as she rose to meet him. Her warmth was disarming, but her eyes betrayed the storm she carried for her friend. She said, "You look like hell." Daniel forced a grim smile and replied, "Hell's where I live now." They sat across from each other, the hum of conversation around them fading into insignificance. Lily reached out, her hand covering his trembling fingers. She whispered, "You can't let him destroy you." Daniel's jaw tightened. "He already did, but I'll rebuild stronger, and this time he'll pay." Her expression shifted, torn between loyalty and fear. She said, "Just don't lose what makes you Daniel." He looked away, eyes locked on the rain dripping down the window. That man died in that boardroom. What's left of me belongs to revenge. Night fell, and Daniel found himself standing in a quiet park where the mentor figure, Richard Ward, waited under a flickering lamp. Richard carried a rugged frame, his weathered face marked with years of battles against men like Ethan. His gray trench coat fluttered slightly in the cold breeze. Daniel approached, wary but desperate for direction. Richard said, "You remind me of myself once." His voice was gravel, calm yet heavy. Daniel asked, "And what did you become?" Richard met his gaze, his eyes carrying the weight of regrets. "A man who lost more than he gained chasing revenge." Daniel clenched his fists, unwilling to hear warnings. He replied, "Then I'll gain what you lost." Richard sighed deeply, placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. Revenge burns brighter than any fire, but it consumes everything it touches. Daniel's eyes gleamed with defiance as he pulled away. "Then let it consume me." Richard's silence lingered like a prayer for the man already lost to darkness. Daniel returned home, his mind circling Richard's words like vultures. He poured whiskey into a glass, staring at the amber liquid, as if it held answers. Lily's voice replayed in his head, pleading with him to stay true, but Ethan's laughter drowned it out. He muttered, "They don't understand. This isn't about survival anymore. It's about justice." He slammed the glass down, amber drops splashing onto the table. Daniel stared into the dark corners of his apartment, the silence pressing like a vice, until a thought came sharp and sudden. "I'll need allies. I'll need strength." Ethan's name glared from the headlines the next morning, painted as a visionary, while Daniel was framed as reckless. The humiliation burned like acid, yet it hardened his resolve. He crumpled the paper and tossed it aside, pacing the apartment. His heart pounded with the clarity of purpose. "He destroyed my name," Daniel whispered, "so I'll destroy his." He stopped at the window, sunlight breaking through storm clouds, a symbol of the thin line between ruin and redemption. His eyes narrowed as he whispered, "This is war, Ethan, and I've just declared it." Daniel spread papers across his apartment floor, blueprints of Ethan's empire. Every company division, every hidden deal, every crooked signature glared back at him. He whispered, "You built this on lies. I'll rip it apart piece by piece." His eyes darted to financial reports he had stolen before his downfall. Years of trust gave him access, and Ethan never imagined Daniel would dare use them. He traced lines of transactions with a trembling finger, uncovering patterns no one else noticed. He muttered, "Shell accounts, payoffs, cover-ups." The storm of betrayal fueled him like fire as he saw Ethan's empire not as invincible, but as fragile glass. Lily's voice haunted him in the silence, "Don't lose yourself." He shook his head, whispering, "It's too late. I've already begun." For the first time since the boardroom, Daniel's lips curled into a grim smile. He realized he had a weapon far more powerful than fists, truth twisted into a blade of exposure. Daniel met Lily in a dim parking garage, secrecy clinging to the air. The echo of dripping water punctuated the silence as she stepped from the shadows, her coat pulled tight. She whispered, "Why here?" He replied, "Because no one listens here. That's what I need." He showed her a folder, pages filled with Ethan's hidden crimes. Lily's eyes widened as she scanned them, her breath catching. She muttered, "If this is real, you could destroy him." Daniel said, "Not could, I will." She looked up, her voice shaking. "But at what cost?" Daniel's stare hardened, shadows under his eyes dark as the night. "Whatever it takes, he took everything from me. Now I'll burn his kingdom." Lily stepped back, torn between fear and loyalty. "Then let me help, but promise me you'll know when to stop." Daniel didn't answer, only turning away with fire burning in his eyes. Daniel sat in a run-down diner across from Richard, the mentor's calm presence contrasting the chaos inside him. Richard stirred his black coffee slowly before speaking. "You're gathering weapons you can't control." Daniel shot back, weapons are what I need. Richard leaned forward, his weathered face serious. Truth can cut both ways. Use it recklessly, and you'll bleed yourself dry. Daniel slammed a hand on the table, rattling cutlery. He destroyed my career. He humiliated me. You expect me to let him walk free? Richard's gaze softened, but his voice remained steady. I expect you to remember the man you were before him. Don't let Ethan dictate who you become. Daniel's chest rose with heavy breaths as he whispered, I don't care who I become as long as he falls. Richard exhaled sharply, looking at him with quiet sorrow. Then you've already lost more than you realize. Silence fell heavy, broken only by the hiss of the diner's grill. Ethan Cole entered his glass-walled office at the top of the skyscraper, the city glittering beneath him. His reflection in the glass was that of a man untouchable, polished, and powerful. He smirked as he glanced at the latest headlines praising his vision. Perfect, he muttered. But behind the smug expression, his eyes flicked nervously toward a locked drawer. He pulled it open, revealing a phone with encrypted messages, secrets that could ruin him. He scrolled quickly, deleting conversations with shady partners, his jaw tightening. Loose ends, Ethan whispered. He pressed a button, summoning his enforcer. Moments later, a tall, intimidating man stepped inside. Ethan said, We may have a problem. Handle it. The enforcer nodded silently, expression unreadable. Ethan leaned back, confidence sliding over his nerves like armor. No one touches me, he muttered. Yet for the first time in years, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. Daniel broke into a rented storage unit, dim light flickering overhead. Boxes lined the walls, filled with evidence he had gathered, contracts, photos, recordings. He muttered, Avery Empire leaves cracks. He connected wires to a laptop, his screen lighting up with stolen data. His pulse raced as he uncovered proof of Ethan's illegal deals. A name appeared again and again, partners in crime hiding behind false companies. Daniel whispered, Got you. His hands trembled not with fear, but anticipation. He imagined Ethan's face when the world saw the truth. The thought brought him grim satisfaction. Yet, in the silence of that room, he also felt the growing shadow of obsession wrapping tighter around his soul. He whispered, This is just the beginning. The sound of distant thunder rolled, as if the storm itself was waiting for the war to begin. Daniel slipped into the crowded networking gala, a place where Ethan's allies polished their lies with champagne smiles. The chandeliers sparkled above like a cruel joke. Daniel muttered, This is his kingdom, but tonight I draw blood. He moved through the crowd, unseen, every step guided by the fire of betrayal. At the center, Ethan laughed with politicians and tycoons, his power flaunted like armor. Daniel's pulse raced, but he held his composure. He whispered to himself, Every empire cracks from the inside. He brushed past a waiter, slipping a flash drive into the man's tray. The device carried files that could poison Ethan's image if leaked. Daniel didn't need fists tonight. He needed whispers turned into storms. Outside the gala, Lily leaned against the hood of her car, scanning the streets nervously. She said into her phone, Daniel, you're playing with fire. His voice came steady through the line. Then I'll burn brighter. She bit her lip, torn between warning him and supporting him. She whispered, Just promise me you'll walk away when it's done. Silence filled the line before Daniel finally said, There is no walking away. This ends with him broken. Her eyes welled with tears as she muttered, Then I'll be there when you fall. In his penthouse, Ethan raised a glass of whiskey, unaware of the cracks forming beneath him. His enforcer stood near the window, arms crossed, silent as stone. Ethan muttered, Hayes is nothing. A man like him can't touch me. But even as he spoke, his eyes flicked toward the locked drawer again. He poured more whiskey, the amber liquid reflecting his unease. Still, tie up loose ends, he ordered. The enforcer nodded, his face unreadable, his loyalty forged from necessity. Yet in his silence, doubt stirred, a seed planted by the cost of Ethan's corruption. Ethan smirked at the skyline. Power isn't given, it's taken. But for the first time, his hand trembled slightly as he set the glass down. Daniel met Richard in a dim alley behind the gala, the smell of rain and cigarettes lingering. Richard's eyes narrowed as he said, "You're pushing too far." Daniel snapped, "Too far is all I have left." Richard sighed, his voice low. "I've seen revenge eat men alive. Don't let it hollow you." Daniel's stare was steel. "You think I care about redemption? This is about justice." Richard stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Justice and revenge are not the same." Daniel pulled away, whispering, "To me, they are now." Richard watched him fade into the shadows, regret carved deep into his face. Daniel returned to his apartment, exhaustion clawing at him, but his resolve unshaken. He opened his laptop, files glowing across the screen like a battlefield map. The leaks had begun, whispers of Ethan's corruption spreading through forums and anonymous feeds. Daniel whispered, "Let the world taste the truth." His hands shook, not with fear, but with the weight of war. Outside, thunder cracked, as if the city itself was preparing for conflict. He leaned back in his chair, eyes burning with determination. Tomorrow, Ethan Cole won't just be questioned. He'll be hunted. The leak spread faster than Daniel imagined, headlines erupting overnight. Ethan's empire trembled as whispers turned into accusations. Daniel watched from his apartment, the glow of the laptop painting his face. He whispered, "Now the cracks show." His phone buzzed, an unknown number. A distorted voice said, "You're not the only one after him. Stop or you'll regret it." Daniel froze, his chest tightening. He whispered, "Who else knows?" The line went dead, leaving him in silence. The truth that once felt like his weapon now seemed tainted. He thought, "This isn't just my war. Someone else is pulling strings." Daniel met Lily in the park at dawn, the grass wet with dew. Her face was pale with fear. She said, "Someone else is targeting Ethan. You're caught in something bigger." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Good. Let them. I'll use it." Lily shook her head. "No, you don't understand. If Ethan falls too fast, he'll drag you with him." Daniel's eyes narrowed, fire burning behind his exhaustion. "No. Then I'll strike first." Lily grabbed his arm. "You're losing yourself, Daniel." He pulled away, whispering, "I already lost myself the day he betrayed me." The morning light did nothing to ease the chill between them. Ethan sat in his office, jaw tight as he slammed a newspaper onto his desk. The headlines screamed corruption. He muttered, "Who dares?" The enforcer stood nearby, silent but watchful. Ethan barked, "Find the leak, crush it." The enforcer nodded, though doubt flickered in his eyes. Ethan's phone buzzed with another encrypted message. He read quickly, his expression twisting. He whispered, "Impossible. It can't be him." Rage cracked his polished mask as he hurled the glass of whiskey across the room. The enforcer watched, realizing for the first time that Ethan feared someone in the shadows, someone more dangerous than Daniel. Richard found Daniel at a quiet bar, half-empty whiskey glass before him. He sat down slowly, eyes full of concern. "You're in deeper than you realize," he warned. Daniel smirked bitterly. "Deeper is where I live now." Richard leaned closer. "Ethan isn't your only enemy. There are others who want him gone, and they'll use you as their pawn." Daniel's eyes flicked up, sharp and defiant. "Then I'll outplay them." Richard's sigh carried years of regret. "You think you're the hunter, but you're walking into a trap." Daniel drained his glass, whispering, "Traps are just opportunities in disguise." That night, Daniel unlocked the storage unit again, files spread across the floor like a war map. As he dug deeper, he froze. A contract bore his own name, signed years ago, unknowingly linking him to Ethan's fraud. His stomach twisted. He whispered, "He set me up even before the betrayal." Rage and dread collided as the truth settled in. If this surfaced, Daniel wouldn't just expose Ethan. He'd damn himself too. His chest heaved as he muttered, The world won't see me as a victim. They'll see me as his partner. The twist cut deeper than any wound. Daniel stood on the rooftop of a parking garage, the night air sharp with electricity. Below, Ethan's convoy of cars pulled in, headlights slicing through darkness. Daniel whispered, "This is where it ends." His grip tightened on the folder of evidence. Every fiber of his body trembled, not from fear, but from anticipation. Lily's words echoed in his mind, warning him of the cost. He muttered, "Too late for warnings." The roar of engines died as Ethan stepped out, adjusting his suit, confidence dripping with every movement. Daniel's jaw clenched, the storm inside him ready to break loose. Ethan spotted him and smirked, his voice carrying across the rooftop. "Daniel Hayes, the ghost who refuses to stay buried." Daniel stepped forward, fire in his eyes. "You built your empire on my blood. Tonight I take it back." Ethan laughed, but the sound was hollow. You're nothing without me." Daniel threw the folder at his feet, papers scattering like fallen leaves. "The world won't think so when they see this." Ethan's smirk faltered, but only for a moment. He stepped closer, whispering, "Truth can be buried. Men like me always bury it." Daniel's fists tightened. "Not this time." The enforcer stepped out from the shadows, towering, fists clenched. Daniel's eyes narrowed, knowing this was the wall between him and Ethan. Ethan said coldly, "End him." The enforcer moved forward, each step echoing like thunder. Daniel's body tensed, adrenaline spiking. Lily's voice replayed in his head, "Don't lose yourself." But rage drowned it out. He dodged the first blow, the punch shattering concrete instead. Daniel struck back, desperation fueling every hit. The enforcer faltered, doubt flickering in his eyes. Daniel gasped, "You're protecting the man who ruined us all." The enforcer hesitated, his fists lowering just slightly. Daniel landed one final blow that sent the enforcer sprawling. Breathing hard, he looked down at the man who had once been Ethan's shadow. The enforcer locked eyes with him, then glanced at Ethan, realization burning across his face. He muttered, "I'm done protecting you." Ethan's fury erupted. "You coward!" Daniel stepped closer, eyes blazing. "Even your guard knows you're finished." Ethan pulled a gun from his coat, his hands trembling despite his smile. He hissed, "If the world wants blood, they'll have yours." Daniel stared down the barrel, his heart pounding like war drums, yet his voice steady. "Then pull the trigger." The storm broke with thunder as Daniel's phone buzzed in his pocket. Ethan's eyes flickered toward it as the screen lit up with breaking news, headlines already exposing his corruption. Daniel whispered, "It's over. The world knows." Ethan's grip on the gun faltered, the weight of truth heavier than the weapon in his hand. His face crumbled, arrogance dissolving into panic. Daniel stepped forward slowly, his voice cold as steel. "You can kill me, but you can't kill the truth." Ethan dropped the gun, collapsing into his chair of lies, finally burning down. Daniel stood above him, chest heaving, the storm outside echoing the storm finally ending inside. The morning after, Daniel stood in his apartment, exhausted but unbroken. News anchors filled the airwaves, Ethan's empire collapsing under scandal. Daniel whispered, "Justice." Yet as headlines screamed victory, he felt no triumph, only emptiness. Lily arrived, eyes wide with relief. She said, "It's over, Daniel. You did it." He turned, his face haunted. "I didn't win. I just survived." She placed a hand on his shoulder, whispering, "Then survive long enough to find yourself again." He looked away, the city bathed in golden light beyond the window, the war outside finally quiet, but the war inside still raging. Ethan sat in an interrogation room, his once polished suit wrinkled, his arrogance shattered. He muttered, "I made kings." His voice cracked as cameras flashed outside, the world tearing him apart. Daniel watched from a hallway, his fists clenched. He whispered, "No empire lasts forever." Richard appeared beside him, sighing. You've ended him, but what about you? Daniel's face tightened, lines of pain deepening. I don't know who I am without revenge. Richard placed a hand on his shoulder. Then it's time to find out. Daniel nodded faintly, his reflection in the glass not a victor, but a survivor. In a small diner, Daniel and Lily sat together in silence. Coffee steamed between them, but words felt heavier than steam. Lily finally said, You proved the truth, but you nearly lost yourself. Daniel's eyes dropped to the table, fingers tracing the rim of his cup. Maybe I already did. Lily leaned closer, her voice soft but firm. Then let me help you find what's left. Daniel looked at her, eyes searching for something beyond revenge. For the first time in months, his lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. Maybe, he whispered, there's still something left to save. Later, Daniel walked through the park where Richard once warned him. Children laughed in the distance, their innocence cutting through his darkness. He sat on a bench, watching them play, a faint calm settling in. He whispered, I almost became him. The thought chilled him, but also freed him. Richard's words echoed, revenge consumes everything it touches. Daniel clenched his fists, then slowly released them, letting the tension fade. For the first time, the fire inside dimmed, leaving space for something else. Hope, now too. He whispered, I'm still here. The words felt like a small victory, fragile but real. That night, Daniel stood once more on his balcony, the city stretching endlessly before him. Lights flickered like stars, each window hiding stories of ambition, betrayal, and survival. He whispered, Ethan's gone. But the world still hungers for men like him. His reflection in the glass showed not a broken man, but one scarred and still standing. He turned away from the city with a final whisper. My revenge is done. Now I need to live. The silence that followed was heavier than thunder, yet gentler than rain, a final line closing the story of vengeance with quiet resolve.